And that has enabled us to be a community that is constantly engaged and communicating with solutions to our challenges. In the center of all of that, this is a community that is very strong on education support. We are a university community. We've got some of the best colleges in the country, but also we've got a lot of schools in our township that are doing really well. And that is not by mistake. It is a result of being very intentional as a community, ensuring that every learner is supported regardless of where they are situated in the social ladder. So that is Makanda in a snapshot. And the result of all of the above is a complex and multidimensional community that opted to rise above historical and political challenges to create a better reality for all. So I'm going to quickly speak on my journey as a community partner with Rhodes University. If I were to summarize it, I would summarize it into three phases, for lack of a better word. That would have been the dependency phase, the community strengthening phase, and the collaborative phase. And I speak from a perspective of somebody that's been involved in the NGO space in and around Makanda for a number of years, in partnership with the university throughout those years. So for me, the dependency phase, from my perspective, it was characterized by huge focus on the university as a solutions provider. Again, referring back to our history of a divide of the privileged and the not so privileged. The university always occupied a space of affluence, privilege, limitless resources. So it was easy to fall back to that position of, now that we are intentionally engaging, and now that we have a university that is a big asset to the community, and a university that is very much aware of the challenges of the community, in determining how we move forward, how it began was in just looking up to the university and saying, how can you best help us? And the university being aware of how it is positioned within the community, using that approach of helping in terms of the university providing and us as communities receiving. And this, I believe this came from a very well-intentioned space, but what it did is that it created this cycle of dependency. When our communities, even though we recognize that there was the need to do things differently so that we can see the necessary shifts that we wanted to see in our communities as we address the challenges that plague us, but we could not really be in a space where we could say that we can rely on ourselves, because this helping approach was creating this pool of beneficiaries in the form of community structures, NGOs, and the question now was, how sustainable could this be? Because we could not perpetually be stuck in a deficit mindset of, if we don't have enough, it can only make sense if the university comes and rescues us. So at some point, there was a recognition of the fact that we were stuck with all the resources and the goodwill and the coming together of the university and the communities. It didn't feel like we were covering much ground. So there was a dialogue that was organized by Rhodes University with community partners present to say, what is it that is not happening? What is it that can be done better? And it is from that dialogue that we recognize, all of us, that we cannot use this helping approach in trying to bring about the change that we want to see. Then the question was, how do we improve on this relationship so that it moves us towards these desired outcomes? And then as we moved, we entered into what I have called the community strengthening phase. So this was a phase whereby, as communities, we recognized that there was a need to look within and to look around us to see how we could best leverage what we already have so that we can be able to address our own challenges in ways that make sense to us. And of course, this was driven by the partnership with the universities in terms of what kind of training can we get, who was going to run the training, how many people are going to participate in the training, and how are we going to move forward in meaningful ways that we're going to reflect the change that we are all working towards. And there were a lot of us that became part of this asset ABCD. Yes, I will remember it when it's substance later. Asset-based community development approach, yes. And so this was a movement that started looking into how do you build or develop community capacities so that we can be actively involved in seeking for solutions to our own problems. How do you build people with problem-solving capacities? And how do you then promote community-led solutions so that people can be able to take ownership of the work that is being done, and so that people can feel like they are capable of sustaining such solutions with or without the support of external parties. And then from there, again, we moved into what I term the collaborative phase. So the collaborative phase was a pretty exciting one because it emanated from a recognition of the fact that the challenges that we face as a community, they are complex, interconnected, and you need more than the intervention of one entity to be able to solve them. So then looking at what we have in Makhanda, it's not just communities, as I've already mentioned, it's a university city, there is a lot of students in Makhanda. So how do we then come together collectively to see how we can be able to leverage all of this so that we are able to come together with co-created solutions for the complex challenges that we face as a community. This is where community-based participatory research emerged. And this was a very exciting period for us, and I think we're still caught up in that excitement to say that there is a way in which we can co-create knowledge together with the university. We can co-create knowledge in ways that make sense to both parties. We can all look for knowledge that just doesn't stay in books and papers at the university and gather dust, but knowledge that can be actionable and lead us towards what we envisage as communities to be something that we want to see happening in our spaces. And to further strengthen this, there was training organized for community partners so that everybody understands what this community-based participatory research is. And there was a question posed to the community partners to say, is it something that you want to be part of? Does it make sense for you? And of course, after deliberating on it alone by ourselves, we decided that yes, it is something that would make total sense to us, because then it gives us a voice in terms of what are the challenges that we see ourselves. We come up with our own problem statements now, and then we seek for the support that we need from the university. And the university has been very intentional in how they partner academics, potential research partners in the community, and inviting us into the space of Rhodes University community engagement to say, what are the potential research questions that you have, and how can we help you? Who do you want to partner with? And what does that partnership look like, and what you're going to need to make it happen? So that has been exciting for us in terms of just making communities feel as though their voices matter, and that the knowledge that we hold is knowledge that can be used in ways that we can recognize and own and kind of like sustain even moving forward. The other thing that has happened in the collaborative phase is the creation of joint reflection spaces, where we are able to formulate place-based strategies. And it looks like communities of practice that will include community members or different sectors of society, where people who are like-minded and are interested in similar topics can come together and co-create solutions, and where skills sharing can happen, and where people can be able to identify potential collaborations outside of their limited spaces to say, if I collaborate with you and you, then maybe we can be able to do something bigger and kind of like move faster in working towards what we all want to see. And at the heart of all of this is this desire for collective action towards social and economic impact. So it is the partnership between the university and the communities is a partnership that is driven by shared values and a shared desire for empowering our communities and for seeing transformation in our city. And this requires collective action so that the social ills that we are dealing with, we can be able to address them as a collective, bringing together different skills, different knowledges, and different capacities. And also to have the kind of impact that we need in terms of improving the lives of our people in our communities. And the university has been very intentional also in making sure that they create pathways for children from the community who are interested in accessing the university to be able to go to Rhodes University. And that has huge impact if you think about socially what it means for families who have kids who can now go to university and maybe they are first graduates in their families. Also economically, when those kids are able to then have jobs and take care of their families and take up the education responsibilities of their siblings and so on and so forth. So the collaborative phase is what we are busy with right now, trying to see what can we do as a collective so that we can deepen the impact of the work that we are doing in our city. Looking at the barriers, it's not been an easy journey. So we've had to, and I think like this is familiar for many in South Africa, we've had to grapple with issues of power, privilege, and mistrust. So if you are dealing with a formerly segregated society, previously segregated society, of course there will be issues of power, not just power along the haves and the have-nots, but power also that comes with people being more educated than others. Power that comes from people coming from the university as academics, where we look up to academics as people that are experts in everything, that have to be listened to, that will kind of like, take us to the promised land, but now we need to forge strong partnerships. So those issues of power are issues that we have to be constantly aware of and to address as they come up. And also there are issues of privilege and mistrust. And the privilege is not just across racial lines. It is privilege in the sense that when you have learners that become students at universities, there is a certain way that they become socialized, and they need to be aware of the fact that that socialization, maybe when they go back to their communities, they might be looked upon as different or as better. Then how do you then go back to the same communities and contribute in meaningful ways if you are not aware now of the change in your circumstances and the power that people might perceive you to be having or holding? And the mistrust is from the fact that there has been traditional ways of doing things before, where in this partnership between communities and universities, the universities had all the power. And we cannot pretend like that was not the case before. And it's taken a lot of conversations, it's taken a lot of just being very open about where we come from in this partnership so that people can deal with that mistrust of what is the hidden agenda, why now wanting to work together, why now wanting this partnership, and also to just be aware that it is work in progress, it is a journey, it's not something that's going to be magically happening. It requires full commitment from all parties that are involved in this partnership. The other area was lack of clarity in engagement. The thing that says that if now you are collaborating and you are partnering, you need to be very transparent in terms of what it is that you are trying to do. If it is a research project, be transparent in terms of why do you want to do the research for both parties, what do you want to get out of this research process, what is it going to require for everybody to feel like they're actively participating in the process, so as to kind of like avoid any feelings of somebody being more powerful than the other. So that clarity is something also that needed to be negotiated and to keep being brought up again and again in terms of, can we just be clear on what everybody is looking for from these partnerships or from these engagements? Also, there still is, I think, a reluctance to address elephants in rooms, in the sense that since we are a people that have got a very controversial history, there is anger there somewhere. There has been run-ins before, and there might be a reluctance to engage in ways that are meaningful and productive. And these are the things that might benefit from open conversations. These are the things that might benefit from being spoken about fully. But then it is not an easy exercise, because on the one hand, you will have people that are sitting with memories of what it was like to be oppressed, to be dispossessed, and then you're in the same space as people who are willing and aware of our past history and their privilege, but want to forge forward and might not want to dwell so much on what happened in the past and how it happened. But these are some things that maybe might benefit from being addressed so that they stop being questions at the back of people's minds. And the resistance to change, it's resistance to change from my perspective from both sides, in the sense that I'm looking at the time, in the sense that when you, as a community partner, when I'm with other community partners, of course, we will address issues of can we trust the genuine, what is it that we're going to be hit with when we are not expecting. But on the other side also, I see how the university is really trying to change and how it is a process. And now for the longest time, even from university spaces, there are ways in which certain things have been done, and that it is a process for all parties involved of learning and unlearning and learning again continuously. So those are the barriers and the enablers. So all of us, we are people of Makanda. We have the best interests of this city at heart, and we are committed to putting in the work that is required to make sure that the city works. So the shared contextual concerns are what enable us to be able to forge ahead despite the difficulties, and the sense of reciprocity. And to a big extent, this I can be accredited to Rhodes also for always having been, as far as my experience goes, an open university that is accessible to all, with the open door policy of listening and wanting to assist. So there is a sense of reciprocity in the relationship where volunteers can go into the communities and be able to assist with the work that is being done in the communities, where we have service learning happening in our communities, but at the same time, we are able to have community partners willing to work with university academics and in research projects. And there is also spaces that are intentionally created for continuous learning and reflection, which allows us to always learn from our mistake and do better. And there is a commitment to sustained mutual benefit, understanding that all of us have got something that the other part can use and find of value, and that we are here to assist each other to be able to come up with those value points. And thank you very much.
Thanks, Monica. I want to call on Pavitra Pillai. Thank you. So in the meantime, while they come to the podium, if you can just note your questions for Monica's presentation, and then we're going to take it at the end. Welcome.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for coming to listen to my presentation. I just want to say at the outset that I'm feeling very privileged to be here, to be sharing our very, I think, just sharing our special experience in terms of community engagement in the Faculty of Health Sciences. So I'm going to give you a brief outline of the presentation. I think everybody's pretty familiar with the history in terms of the legislation and the different types of laws and policies that have been in place recently that have prompted us to try and solidify engagement. But I'm going to tell you a little bit about DT. I'm going to tell you about how our health sciences faculty looks at engagement. I'm going to speak or just touch on some of the considerations that we have, because we're from the Faculty of Health Sciences, about vulnerable populations and looking at ethics and cultural considerations as well. I'm going to share an example of an engagement that we have and talk about the impact of this engagement in terms of what it meant to the community, what it meant to students, what it meant to the university academics and society at large, and round up with the benefits, opportunities, challenges, and just some final conclusions. This is not a research project like some of the other presentations, but I hope that you will gain something from it anyway. So in the context of engagement, we know about all the policies and the legislation. More specifically, at DOT, we have a strategy known as Envision 2030. And stemming from this, we have an engagement strategy or framework, which is talking mainly about engagement. And within that engagement strategy, one of the main debates for me as an academic is how do you separate the word engagement from community engagement? So, for me, that's been a bit of a tussle because I know it to be community engagement. So, even when I was writing up my talk, I speak about engagement. But when I come here and I listen to all the experts in the field, and I'm not an expert in community engagement at all, I see you talking about it as community engagement. So it is what it is, but I think there's some blurred lines between those two words. So in our university, we have 6 faculties, and there are different levels of engagement across the faculties. But one of the tenets of the DUT engagement framework or strategy is that we should make sure that engagement is embedded in teaching and learning, research and innovation, and entrepreneurial education. Now, if you look at that diagram that I made there, it's quite an off-shaped diagram because it shows you that teaching and learning in university seems to be big. This is my perspective. Research might be slightly smaller. I don't know why I made it so big, but yeah, DUT. And entrepreneurial education is something that is starting to build up in the university. And I'm conflicted because I think that engagement or community engagement should be the big circle into which all these other circles fit. That's how I would say it would be the best way to have it. But I'll just put it like this because this is how I see it as it is now. And engagement doesn't have the same importance across all the faculties in the university, although they are getting a little bit more into it. But I think health sciences has traditionally been one of the faculties that has embraced engagement. And we have different forms of engagement in our Faculty of Health Sciences. We have scholarly engagement where you have engagement that is very much based on credits, where students go into communities and they do clinical practice, and that's how they get assessed, and it's part of their qualification. We have other types of research engagements which may be attached to grants. in our faculty, we're very, very strong on school-based career guidance, where we have a community liaison officer who goes to the rural schools to promote our health sciences programs. So that's one of the big aspects of our engagement in our faculty. We also have engagement which links local, international, and local and international stakeholders, and those types of engagements are usually linked to research, or mostly. Okay, so in our Faculty of Health Sciences, we have a research focus area which is entitled Global Health and Sustainability. So I'm sure that you will see that it fits in very well with community engagement. And with our research focus area, it aligns to the Sustainable Development Goals. And I've just listed a few there, but I think it depends on what you're doing and how you do it. It could align to many more of the goals. Okay, so the next aspect I'm going to just touch on is about vulnerable populations. And because we in health sciences, sometimes we have to deal with people who might not be well, or people who are patients. And, the definition of who makes up a vulnerable population is complex, and there's different types of, there's a range of different definitions of this. But I thought this one kind of encapsulated it quite well. And it states that vulnerable populations include patients who are racial or ethnic minorities, children, elderly, socioeconomically disadvantaged, underinsured, or those with certain medical conditions. And members of vulnerable populations often have health conditions that are often as a result of their inadequate health care. So these are the types of populations that we work in. And if anybody wants, they can have a look at this whole list of them, the population in a little bit of more detail, but I think that we'll skip. And more importantly, when we're embarking on any type of work with the community, and not necessarily only research, but I think even engagement, if it's got nothing to do with research, we need to instill this is what we need to consider and instill in our students the tenets of research, which are autonomy, non-maleficence, beneficence, justice. If we're doing any research specifically, it comes with informed consent and anonymity, etc. And also to think about the power imbalance when dealing or working with the community. Something that I find that is very special and also very complex is to look at cultural considerations. And very often we have students who may not be fully aware of how to dress, or staff even, or how to speak, or how to behave when you go to a community. I know in my own context, we had, when we did community work in another life, we had international people who would do things that they thought was acceptable, but they had to be told that some of these things are not acceptable when you go into a community. You can't wear a short dress and walk into the community, or dress inappropriately, or just speak to a chief if you're a lady in a matter of fact way, or so you have to train people or make people be mindful. The other thing is the language imbalance, and you need to not only use language that is not understandable, but look at words or phrases that are not considered to be offensive. You need to worry about those things. And also to uphold the ethical code and conduct of respect, empathy, impartiality, and non-maleficence. So these are things that we try to instill in our students to some extent, as well when we get in, and our staff as well when we get into any sort of engagement with the community. So this is an example that I'm going to share with you today. So you can see where DUT is at the bottom of the map there. You know, we're located at KwaZulu-Natal, and we had an association with an NGO clinic that is located about 2.5 to 3 hours away from DUT in the North Coast in St. Lucia. I'm not sure if you know where St. Lucia, some of you may know St. Lucia. So this is the NGO clinic, and when we had meetings with them, we realized that they rely on donor funding. They provide healthcare to approximately 36,000 patients, or they saw 36,000 patients in 2023. Not only providing healthcare, and they're a clinic that provides mainly alternative healthcare like homeopathy services to the patients, but they also do upskilling, sewing, they teach the community a little bit on IT as well. The main beneficiaries or the people who come to the clinic are the elderly as well as women and children. And as with most other rural areas, the diseases that they're plagued with obviously are HIV and TB, but a lot of them suffer from acute and chronic conditions such as hypertension, arthritis, diabetes, neurological complaints, and the list goes on. Adjacent to this clinic is an orphanage and a crèche, and they have some clinics in the area, but the problem is that they don't have adequate access to the government clinics. So there's DUT at the bottom there. So what do we have? In our Faculty of Health Sciences, we have 11 programs which can provide a whole suite of services. We can look at this opportunity in a sense that we can get our students to go there and work in an alternative space that is different to a traditional classroom. And the space also may help our graduates to become a little bit more developed. And one of the important things that we saw there was the shared responsibility of accountability and improving the lives and livelihoods of the community. So I just want to highlight something on the slide here when I was making it up, because I realized that sometimes people like us who are better or who are not less fortunate, when we go into communities, sometimes there's a notion that we are coming there to benefit the community. But when you weigh up the benefits, I think we as an institution benefit far more from going and interacting with that community, although we think that we're doing a lot for them. Because it's difficult to measure the impact and the amount of learning that happens on our side. So, but nonetheless, I'm just going to tell you what we did. I'm just sharing a wellness day that we had, which was a 5-hour, it lasted 5 hours. And basically, it was 5 hours. We couldn't afford to go there and stay there because it's like 3 hours away from Durban. So we had to try and find some money to hire a vehicle to accommodate, I think it was about 30 of us that went, staff and students. And we had to do it within the day. So we left at 5 a.m. and we got there like about 9:30 with stops and things. And then by about 10, we started seeing the patients. And then we had to also get back to Durban within the day. So that's why it was a 5-hour duration. So when we got there, the main things that we did was pain relief, and that was from our chiropractic students. They treated 15 patients who had musculoskeletal pain. The nursing students did vital screening amongst, I think, about 100 or more patients, because there were quite a few of them and they were just doing the screening. we had somatology, which did deep tissue massage in 35 patients. Now, this deep tissue massage was not a massage to feel, oh, I just want to feel relaxed. These were people who had arthritic pain and just pain that they couldn't manage, that they were getting these treatments with. And our emergency medical care and rescue and our medical orthotics and prosthetics and nursing and radiography did health promotion while the patients were being treated in the waiting area. So the net impact is that we engaged with around 100 patients, and this is just my estimation of the net impact, right? In 5 hours on one day through our collaborated efforts. So what would be the potential impact if we went there every month or on a much more regular basis? Okay. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about the reflections from the students' perspectives. So the student felt that we asked students how do they feel after they engage with the community, and the students said that it serves as a cornerstone of our education and personal growth, gives you a chance to work with diverse communities. We have instilled in us empathy, social responsibility, and leadership, and it helped them academically and personally in bridging the gap. And it brought theory and practice in better alignment, and it allowed them to make meaningful contributions to the well-being of individuals and communities alike. Okay, this picture here that I have is actually the student who was treating a young child who came to the clinic. And he normally comes to the clinic and he has to wait in the car because they don't have a wheelchair to take him up to be seen. So when he's ready to be seen, they have to carry him in. So this is one of our nursing students who's actually doing some vital screening and just seeing to the patient there. And, you know, the sense of the impact and addressing health disparities and students feeling that this gives them a chance to be change agents, something that they felt in their reflection, okay? On a personal level, some students do career guidance in their own communities. It has nothing to do with DUT. They help them to apply by the CAO for, they help students in grade 11 and 12 to apply for their university. And they also do tutoring. I think I'm going to skip some of the reflections because I have many. In terms of the academic staff that were there, they felt that this helped them in terms of their skills development. It enabled, I can see, thanks. I will wrap up soon. It gave them the opportunity to promote other skills such as collaboration, cultural competency, communication, and co-leadership. And as you can read, there are lots of things there that they felt happy about. I'm just going to, this one I thought was important because the latter part of this narrative talks about it questions whether the community, what sort of perception the community has in terms of an institution like DUT. Does the community really think that its DUT is providing them with an essential service or not? And you know, how do we meet the alignment with the community's needs and our needs and bridge the gap? In terms of the faculty, I felt that we had a great sense of pride when we went there. We worked with a team, and the students were just generally just out of their depth. They were like in a different zone. You wouldn't say those were the same kids you see raving about the faculty. They showed respect, care, empathy. There was interdepartmental chatter about techniques that radiography was doing and what chiropractic was doing amongst them. And we got a lot done. And while we had logistical challenges, the benefit and the relief that I saw from this process far outweighed the challenges that we had when we were trying to go in. So these are some of the overall benefits in terms of our university, and it helps us to make the activities more student-led. It gives them exposure to the dynamics not found in the classroom. Learning becomes contextualized. There's opportunities for decolonization of the curriculum, multidisciplinary collaboration, interdepartmental and interfaculty, and also research can happen. So some of the challenges that we experience are strengthened institutional support for community engagement. We need to think around not exploiting the relationship with communities. As I said at the beginning, are we going there to do something to benefit them, or are we benefiting from them? And it's the third slide speaks to the same sort of thing, that we need to get off our high schools and think that we only doing something that's beneficial. The community is not the only beneficiary, and sustainability is a challenge as well. So this is my conclusion: to be grounded and realistic on goals, to have increased advocacy in the university and room for interfaculty collaboration, sustainability again, and strengthen the mindset that this is not an add-on activity, but it's deeply embedded in all our work with people. So, yes, I'd like to acknowledge the community that we worked with. We have really learned a lot from them, and we are grateful for that opportunity. Thank you for listening.
Thanks so much, Pavitra. I think that just to remind you to keep your questions, please write down your questions that you're going to ask. I just, without further ado, call Margaret Aringo from Tangaza University College in Kenya. The presentation is entitled Integrity for the Just Nation, Service Learning and Community Engagement.
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to be present here in South Africa. Mostly, I have come to learn. I have come to learn on behalf of Tangaza University. Why? Because Tangaza University College is now the hub for service learning for African universities, and there are 4 universities. Loyola University in the Republic of Congo, Cameroon Central African University in Cameroon, University in Catholic University in Uganda, and Catholic University of Tanzania, and Tangaza University is the hub. As I said, I've come to learn because we are only 3 years old with service learning. And we are grappling. When I sit here and I listen to the community engagement, I say, wow, I have come to learn. And so let me share our experience. And our experience is actually a continual process. What we are doing, what I'm presenting is actually what is continual process in the service learning of Tangaza University. And I would like to say that whatever we have been doing at Tangaza University from the Institute of Social Transformation is community development, but not community engagement. What we have been doing in the Institute of Education is actually teaching practice, but not community engagement. And now what we are doing at the Institute of Spirituality and spiritual transformation is what I'm going to present here, because this is what we began with at the Service Planning Hub. So I begin by when we started the service planning at the community in the slum area. We were taking the students from what they have learned in social justice, social social teachings of the church. We were looking at the students of service learning as taking what they already learned in theory and taking it to the community for the community training. Let me go back. We are at the very beginning of the training. So we are training, we are learning, we are exposing service learning to the students of our university. We are exposing the meaning and the commitment of service learning to the lecturers of the university. We just had a conference Friday last week, and we are now in the process of what is service planning. And so as service planning, we are going to the community to try it out. And this is what I present here today. So, again, I say it's the community engagement and active involvement with the collaboration of the community members to address issues, implement solutions, and create positive change within a particular group of or location or locality. The community service learning is where we engage the university community, subjects the students to learn and collaborate between the university and that of the community. The university and the community makes a memorandum of understanding. What we have done is to take our students to the community and engage them with the community to train them. So Tangaza University, through the Institute of Spirituality and Religious Formation, has involved Kiambu community. This is a slum area community in part of Nairobi, eastern part of Nairobi, Buruburu, in the area of integrity for just nation, facilitated by service learning. The cause that empowered service learning was grown from the cause peace, justice, and how to uphold human rights in the area of social teachings of the church. This is Kiambu community. It is a slum area. It is located in the eastern part of Nairobi, and it is situated between the river and the other estates within this eastern part of the country. So, the community is exposed by service learning students of Tangaza University to bring Kiambu community to train Kiambu small Christian communities on the values of peace, justice, and human rights. In the concept of peace globally, they are taught what is peace globally, what is peace continentally, and what is peace as we are in the community. So the human rights, on the other hand, refers to the fundamental rights and freedom that every person is entitled to, regardless their nationality, ethnic, religion, and any other state. They are made to be aware and create awareness of those issues. So Tangaza service learning students train the Kiambu community on the awareness of peace, justice, and human rights as viewed continentally within the African continent and within their own space. Tangaza then university service learning students create awareness to the Kiambu community about peace, justice, and human rights. In Kiambu slum, peace means creating a safe and stable living environment where residents can go about their daily lives without fear of violence, crime, and exploitation. As we know, the challenges that exist within the slum areas. And although justice involves around fairness, equality, and adherence to the rule of law, members of the small Christian communities of Kiambu community experience injustices. And it is for this reason that the service learning students of Tangaza University train them to be informed of their rights. This is Kiambu community. They have challenges of living, housing, water, employment, etc. In fact, according to statistics, 56% of people living in Nairobi are stated to be living in the slum areas. We have quite a number of slum areas in Nairobi, alongside states that are living in good housing. So in Kiambu slum, there are issues of poverty. Political elections, during political elections, we have lack of knowledge of resident rights, leadership of no goodwill, and lack of knowledge of their community relationships. Inadequate housing, limited access to clean water and sanitation, poverty and unemployment, lack of basic service, crime and insecurity, and marginalization. And due to these issues, Tangaza University, through the Institute of Spirituality and Religious Formation, bring their service learning to the learning students to train the members of Kiambu community on issues of peace, justice, and human rights. This training was continued from February this year up to the April of this year, and the process of assessment, what did they learn, is now what we are dealing with in the Tangaza University service learning area. So we are using pastoral cycle for this process as we go to the community. I was part of them. As we go to the community, we insert ourselves in the community. Then we engage the community with questions, social, cultural questions. We reflect on those questions. Then we ask the community, what are the actions for this process? There is where we are at the moment. And the students engage the small Christian communities in Kiambu in the process of pastoral cycle. Alongside the pastoral cycle, we also use a theoretical framework of experiential educational theory. Experiential educational theory has almost a similar process as the pastoral cycle. It asks the questions, it brings the community to own their concrete experience, the context within that conceptualization. Then they reflect on what they observe. The students reflect together with the community what they observe. Then they begin to do contextualization and the conceptualization of what is going on. Then they come to action, that is active experimentation. At the end of April, that's where we were. We are going to go back in phase 2 to continue the process. So the service learning combines community service with academic learning, objectives allowing students to apply classroom knowledge to address community needs. This approach fosters civil engagement, social responsibility, and a deep understanding of social issues. At Kiambu, the service learning students apply experiential academic theory in the process of to the members. Remember that they're doing pastoral cycle and they are also doing experiential educational theory. So the service learning students are taught about peace, justice, and human rights. And then they come to the Kiambu community and expose this learning to the community. The service learning students then train the community on sovereignty. This year they were training the community on sovereignty of the people, right to clean and safe and adequate water, and challenges of high-cost living, because the community explained during the process of observation and social-cultural analysis that these were the areas that were challenging to them. In the order of the list, that was the 3 major areas that were challenging to them. So in the sovereignty of the people during the training, the service learning students made the Kiambu community aware that their sovereignty exists within the framework of Kenyan governance structures. It also encompasses their rights, autonomy, and cultural integrity. About clean, safe, and potable or adequate water, they came to realize that really they don't have this. What they have is water that they buy, the running water, and they also explain that they have challenges with that. And then for the cost living, we are very aware that since COVID-19, challenges have been there in cost of living. And for us, the community identified that since 2017, they have had great challenges with the cost living, societal cost living. So they also experience and express that they have limited access to formal employment opportunities, and economic opportunities in Kiambu contributes to higher levels of crime and insecurity in the community. Residents also face risks such as theft, violence, and exploitation, further impacting their quality of life and adding to their financial burden. The Kiambu community lacks access to basic services such as electricity, paved roads, and waste management systems, which are essential for improving living conditions and reducing the cost of living of the residents. We carried out for the purpose, because these learners are going to the community and drawing within the community, they are learning to take back and process. They used qualitative and quantitative method in this process. We had 17 small Christian communities. Some of the communities have 14 members, some have 20 members, some have 23 members. During February up to April, we were able to train 238 small Christian community members about their peace, justice, and human rights. So that just explains how many members were able to touch. And we did actually communicate with all the different members for about the sovereignty of the people. For the sovereignty of the people, we managed to get the community to tell us that the sovereignty of the people, that the 2 small Christian communities were able to tell us that they agreed with the response, that the students were asking the government official account for their social action and demand transparency and integrity in their exercise. And they say they do not take responsibility in the governance. We also engage the community about safe, clean, and adequate water, and the majority responded that really that is a big challenge area. About the high cost living, they express that actually they have challenge with regard to high cost living. What is our summary of this experience? And as I said, the experience is continued. The government officials are not accountable for their actions and demand for transparency and integrity in their exercise. This was during the result of our training. According to the tenants of Kiambu slums, the water distribution in the area is not safe for their health. Leaders in Kiambu slum, after being selected, they do not have time to listen and take responsibility of the life in Kiambu. The sovereignty of the people in Kiambu community exists within the framework of Kenyan government structure, which encompasses their rights, autonomy, and integrity. What are recommendations from our January, February to April? It was recommended that the government officials, church leaders, and representatives and the members of Kiambu slum as a whole should strengthen and establish the mentorship programs for all the groups that are found in the small Christian community, PNC, youth, CNA, CWA, and families. The second recommendation was to set programs that support families to enhance their source of child livelihood, and also to build a peaceful, inclusion, and just society through respecting, protecting, and promoting human rights, and to take part in public participation forums on budgeting and committed to fight corruption. Finally, we came out with the conclusion that there is need for clean water. We also observed that there is need for integrity of the people, and also we observed that there is need for people to have to know and to practice justice. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Margaret, and to the other presenters for the insightful contributions to the session. We have a very few minutes, so I just want to invite the questions. Maybe the last presentation where your questions are fresher, or we can go with anything. There's a hand there. Are there other hands? Yes, there's a second hand. We'll take one more. Gosh, it's like the sun is shining in your eyes here, guys. How did you? Is there another question? No, let's go. Here's the third question here.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nokaluske. I am a master's student in the HKE department here at Rhodes. I think it's a comment or reflection on Monica Tata's presentation. I think it was very informative to hear from community partners. It's brought about the comment she made on privileges when working with community members, and this is something that I found myself dealing with as a Black woman in a predominantly white department going back to a Black community. My upbringing is very rich in terms of school because I started in Moy Class Farms and Moy Class Ezwini, and I kind of went through different schooling systems. So I started in the village, I went to the location, and I ended up at a private school in the last 3 years of my schooling. And now having come to Rhodes University and working with the community, one of the privileges, I mentioned this in our presentation last year, that one of the privileges that I used was language, in that I speak Xhosa. But I was also quickly humbled in that excitement of I am going to be the person that speaks their language, in that in as much as I grew up in Ekasi and I know that life and I resonate with that life, I did not grow up in Xhosa. So we may speak the same language, but the experiences are different. So it just reminded me when you spoke about the students who then end up coming to Rhodes University and are socialized in a different way. And I think that's a conversation we're having, in that in the time that they were here, life continued in the location. And as much as they may relate and they may feel that they know, but things are different, and that we still need to maintain that humility, and that my privilege was just language, but I still needed the privilege of the athletes that I work with, because they know Josa, they know their experience, they know their lives as athletes in Makanda and how far they've come. Thank you.
Thank you. Molweni Ndiwa. My question and a comment as well, I think it's for the second speaker. If I heard you correctly, you were referring to the practical, more clinical experience for students as a form of engagement from the university. In my view, that's not a meaningful engagement, because there's only one person benefiting, is the one that will leave the university with a degree. Because without that experience, they would never graduate. So is it possible then for us to reimagine engagement with the communities, especially in clinical rotation or practice? I'm asking this question because I'm a social worker, I train social workers, and I always, argue that we are playing with communities, because we send students to these communities for their practicum for 1 year or 6 months or 2 months, and then they leave. The other cohort will come next year, trying to get to know the community again and start a new project. Without the project being realized, they leave, because they are there to fulfill only their objective, to get a degree, to get credits, and get the hours. So perhaps can we maybe rethink that, so that the work we are doing with communities is meaningful, is humanizing, is beneficial to everyone. As I'm learning now, I think the dress code, sometimes we are too prescriptive as academics to students. I remember reflecting with communities in Kabeha as we did. For example, social workers are known to be these people that go to communities wearing stilettos, formal, having nice perfumes, and the only thing that they live in these communities is the nice perfume, but not meaningful transformational change in the communities. And the main reason why social workers, I think Harold 2 years back, wrote an article that social workers were robbed in Kabeha, precisely because they do not look like people from these communities they are servicing. So the dress code becomes a problem, it becomes a point of alienation, and it creates a distance between now the professional and the community. Thank you.
There was a third hand.
Thank you. Mine's it's actually a question for the first speaker, where she talked about hindrances in terms of engaging the community. So my question would be, how do we navigate through the hostility in terms of assisting schools around both maths and science, because the teachers feels like you actually taking their positions? Thank you.
Thanks. So I think the first was a comment, correct? Thank you. The second was a question to Pavitra, and then the third was a question to Monica.
Thank you for that valuable comment on the students and the community engagement that is attached to practical work or clinical work, because it's a huge dilemma, and the challenges that you mentioned are really something that we're fully aware of. Sometimes, as you say, the students come in, they do something and they buzz off, and then another lot of students come in. So that is why, we try to do other forms of engagement in addition to just a once-off coming in and out. For example, the wellness day had nothing to do with any marks or any clinical hours or anything. It was just an activity that the faculty engaged in. And your point is taken. It is a challenge. I don't think I have an answer for you, but your point is definitely noted, and we need to strengthen sustainability in communities. I think one way in which the universities can become more involved is if they could be the constants in the communities. I mean, yes, we bring different groups of students in, but if we ourselves could make stronger connections and try to sustain that in some way, it may help minimize the turbulence that happens with rotating students through. About the dress code, yes, I totally agree with you, but I was speaking on a different note. Nobody wears stilettos, but sometimes people who come in from other cultures may come in shorts. It's like a female going into a community with shorts or something like that in a research context. And our students in health sciences, unfortunately, if they're coming to do a chiropractic or somatology treatment, they have to wear scrubs. So that's the dress code that they adopt. But thank you so much for your comments. They were very well taken, and your question is very well taken. Thank you.
So Monica is here. I think Monica, you're gonna take the question from there. I must see Monica. I'm here.
So if I assume correctly, the question is around how do you deal with hostility in spaces like schools when you are going there to practice. And I think I kind of like touched on it when I was stressing the importance of transparency in forming these relationships. And this might not be the case for all the schools or all the situations, but most of the time I find that it is something that could have been avoided with a little bit of planning, inclusivity, in terms of not just coming in with an already pre-packaged intervention to the school and just assuming that they're going to be grateful and this is what they need. All schools have got different cultures, different needs, different rhythms, and recognizing that will require that you have conversations, that everybody understands what it is that the other party is bringing and what the other party is needing, so that you create that element of mutual benefit. And I think that when there isn't a feeling of mutual benefit, but rather a feeling of being imposed upon, then it will create hostility.
Thanks. Thank you, Monica. We don't have time for another round of questions, so I want to thank you, colleagues, for those questions that you put up now. In summary, I think the main things that came through were, I just want to say the similarities between the Kiambu, between that district and many parts of South Africa is very, very relevant. I'm not sure if you agree, colleagues. So we have similar context here as well. So thank you for that presentation on how you use the pastoral care system in order to intervene within those communities. So I think that the questions and the takeaways from the session for me would be, is service learning what communities actually want, or do we think that they need it? What is community engagement? Who is your community and what is engagement? And that has several layers that may be unpacked within your context, in your environment. And then the pastoral cycle and ABCD, and this is a bit of a contentious one, because I would always say that asset-based community development and the pastoral care cycle are rooted in spirituality and common goods and strengths of people, which is wonderful because people possess that. However, we possibly need to think through how is government lobbied in parallel processes while the ABCD is taking place. How is government coming to this party, or are they absolved of responsibility? So that's a question in my mind. And then language and languaging. I think that came up yesterday. Language is, and languaging has a multiplicity of components. I don't want to say complexity. Complex means problems. And our languages that we come from, I think many of us sitting here might not be first language English. So that's the bottom line, and we meet each other in these spaces on English. However, the multiplicity of languaging, if we convert something to a mother tongue language, doesn't mean that meaning will be attached to it. So I'll leave you with that. Thank you.
So there's two on the page.
Amanda, I think you're sharing the next two. Yeah.
Just switch the number 3. Okay, I'm just going to try and adjust this one.
We're going to move on to the next section. It's me again. So, it would be a great pleasure to invite the next speaker, who is Renee Hector Kannemeyer. I hope I pronounced it correctly. And she's coming to speak to us from Stellenbosch University, because we spoke yesterday incidentally. And she's going to talk to us about the ethical role of universities in community university partnerships. Stellenbosch University case study on visual redress and restitution. Over to you, Renee. Enjoy your presentation.
Thank you very much, Chair. I have to say, from a personal point of view, it's been absolutely restorative to be here with like-minded people. One doesn't have to spend half your time convincing others of methodology and ethos. So I'm very happy to be here. I need a different person. So I want to talk about the ethical role of universities in community university partnerships, and look specifically at Stellenbosch as a case study in a very specific partnership that they call Partnership for Restitution, looking at visual redress. But before I start, I want to dedicate the presentation to a community leader and activist, Mr. Otto van Nooy. He co-wrote the chapter with me that I'll be sharing on today, and he's been engaged with the university, reminding them of their moral, ethical responsibility for 4 decades, until his death 2 years ago. Professor Audrey Constantius of the Visual Arts Department, she's been instrumental in bringing art and creativity into this work, and sadly passed away in a tragic accident a few months ago. And then also to the student activists of 2015-2016, who through the Freeze Must Fall protests opened up a different narrative around decolonization and decoloniality at Stellenbosch University. I dedicate this presentation to all of them. So before I start, I want to invite you to look at this through a different lens. I quote decolonial and feminist scholar Sarah Ahmed of 2012, and she says this. She says, I want to offer a different way of thinking about relationships between knowledge and transformation. Rather than suggesting that knowledge leads to or should lead to transformation, I offer a reversal that, in my view, preserves the point or aim of the argument that transformation as a form of practical labor leads to knowledge. The very labor of transforming institutions, or at least aiming for transformation, is how we learn about institution transformations. So it's the practice of the work, it is the doing of the work that we confront the systems of oppression or lack of transformation with institutions, rather than waiting for knowledge in order to engage with it. So if you could invite you to hold that lens through the presentation, we will check it again afterwards. So I wish to start with a quote from a book compiled by Milton Viscount and other Stellenbosch University researchers called Inner's Blut. The quote is by Professor Chris Brink, and he was quoted quite a few times in this conference. He was the rector and vice chancellor at Stellenbosch University in 2006. And it is sadly just as relevant today as it was then. He says that Stellenbosch to this day is a divided town. There's the white Stellenbosch of Mosseldracht and De Boert. There's the brown Stellenbosch of Klipsville and De Vlei. And there's the black Stellenbosch of Kayamandi and De Brugge. But before all of this, at one time, there was De Platte. There was once a place where people from different backgrounds and religions were free to live here in Stellenbosch. Within 2 streets blocks of where the university is located today, there was a community where racial divides were less stark and that in embryo form already represented the type of community we strive for in this country today. So I'll focus on reimagining belonging. And I want to frame the work around how do we begin to reimagine belonging in a time when communities of color were forcibly removed. And I'll talk to what does that look like, the forced removals of Stellenbosch, the visual culture at SU, where the work is located, our visual redress policy, identity in place, the Stellenbosch University restitution statement and the understanding of that statement through different lenses, the Look of School Visual Redress Initiative and visual redress as restitution, as opposed to visual redress as symbolism, and in decolonizing university, community university partnerships. So I quote from Mr. Otto van Nooy, community activist in the chapter, and he says that Stellenbosch has a submerged history that refuses to be buried. It resurfaces at odd times, proverbially calling forth as if the stones in the walls themselves are crying out for justice, as in the words of Prophet Habakkuk. The history of the previous site of the Lukov High School, which was the first picture I showed, has repeatedly been highlighted as being of significance by people identifying with it. The alumni of the school, the descendants of those who lived in close proximity to the school in an area known as De Platte, and those who have other meaningful relationships with De Platte, its people or institutions. So before I go to the visual culture, so in Stellenbosch, there was a forced removal in the late 1960s. 3,500 people lost not only their homes, but their sports fields, their churches, the community gathering spaces. People had large-sized properties. They used to have weddings in their gardens. And a lot of the property was acquired then by the university, who turned it into university accommodation, and the very building, which was the Look of School, is where the Division Social Impact, where I'm from, is located. Now, if that doesn't provide an ethical dilemma, I do not know what does. And so, coming back to Stellenbosch, so my research work is focusing on the psychological impact of forced removals and how that trauma is passed on intergenerationally. And so, when I walk to the school, who in my positionality, I'm an alumnus of, and my father was a teacher at the school, so I'm very invested emotionally in the work. So I want to declare that. I immediately, the stark ethical, moral dilemma of giving back to the community in a building that has such a deep meaning for a community produced a huge ethical dilemma. And how do you justify engaging with communities and doing social impact when the very building that you're in was not ethically attained? And the continuous call for the return of the building has been ongoing in the institution for 4 decades. And it's created a lot of tension between the university and community. And I know you mentioned the issue of trust. It's difficult to mend that if the power, the hegemonic power, is so stark in that environment. And so the visual culture at the university has historically offered aesthetic loss that was experienced by mainly white Afrikaner students and staff, which accompanied these welcoming practices. An institutional curriculum that promoted racial stratification and a version of science that justified racial and ethnic separateness. So Stellenbosch University was the country's premier university of apartheid. The shift is from a discourse of racial exclusion towards a discourse that signifies the university's symbolic commitment to redress, restitution, and inclusion. But we felt, and just centering community voices, that the symbolic commitment to redress was just not enough. It just didn't go far enough to restore place identity, a sense of belonging, a shifting power. It had to go beyond symbolism, and that is what we kind of put pressure on the university to review its policies around symbolic commitment to redress. In 2007, the then rector, Professor Russell Botman, handed over the building to the community symbolically, but the community couldn't access it. And so one has to question the idea of symbolism and who does it benefit? Is it just a conscience-soothing approach for the ones that have power? So I'm not going to go through this whole slide, but I want to acknowledge that the protest of 2015-2016 had really set the university on a different trajectory. The work invited university and community to build an ethical pathway towards restitution and full human inclusion, thanks to the students in Stellenbosch and on a national and global level who highlighted the call for decolonial education. So the Stellenbosch University Local for Visual Redress project presents the university and the local community with the opportunity to implement an initiative that could institute visual redress that is community-centered, jointly implemented, and deeply transformational. And it's an opportunity to explore a methodology which is guided by those who have been most impacted and traumatized by the forced removals. And in terms of my research, it shows that if trauma is not healed in one generation, it does become cumulative and grows with each and every generation until a space of healing is provided. And symbolic restitution is not that space of healing. So the aim of the presentation is an opportunity to make meaning of the SE vision, visual redress policy, and the transformation plan. And so what I'm saying is that in order to address the wrongs of the past, we need to have a deeper understanding of the current trauma of people of color who was impacted by those wrongs, in order to explore an equal partnership with the surrounding communities that what appropriate redress and development initiatives they would like to heal their own trauma. And so what the community and conversations around with community leaders will say is that the call for handing over the building to its rightful owners must be given concrete expression, otherwise we cannot actually go forward. And so that calls for a review of that puts the university on the spot and calls for a deep reflection and the moral, ethical responsibility of the university towards its community. And I think the university being located in the community produces a very different opportunity for engagement than a university that is actually moved. And so we engage with the communities and people that wanted to engage. It is easier for me, I think, because I'm from the community, to use that positionality to bridge the barriers of trust. And historically, communities have been called in to rubber stamp and participate on already agreed initiatives by the university. And so there was two proposals to have a garden, a rose garden set up for the Vlakte community that lost their home in their community, and it was rejected by the community as calling it a begrafplaats, a cemetery for the dreams of the community. And another one was a proposed walkway, and communities referred to it as a cul-de-sac for transformation. And so even well-meaning activities that is not birthed out of the people that are mostly impacted is seen as condescending and paternalistic, as Clark and Constantine says in their work. And so we embraced critical participatory action research as methodology that speaks to the very nature of the significant knowledge, wisdom, and expertise of the community. Those who have suffered the most should be at the heart and the center of any kind of restitutive processes. And so the methodology, by very nature, questions what is deemed acceptable knowledge and challenges neutrality and objectivity, since we actually cannot be neutral, objective when we engage. And also inspired by Frere's critical pedagogy, which positions community knowledge as essential and affirms the role of community as essential in responding to the pursuit of justice. So it has a strong liberation focus. It has to emancipate. It has to break down the barriers that oppress. That by very nature makes up critical participatory action research. It confronts the systems of oppression that prohibit local communities from confronting their own challenges. It provides agency. And it's informed by a true commitment to collaborative methodology and pedagogy that encourages and validates the lived experience, ideas, the skills, the contributions, and incorporates local community knowledge into the research methodology in an intentional dialogical process. And so we've spent years just dialoguing, bringing sometimes people that specialize in the field from the university, exposing community partners to this kind of different way of thinking. And we've spent such a long time just engaging and dialoguing. And I put in a proposal in partnership with community leadership around a concept of the look of living museum, what it could mean and what it could mean for future generations. And there was in Stellar's defense, I think accolades to them, that there was a component that actually lends itself to the organic development of the work, which was funded. It's not often that people provide funding for something that they don't know is going to happen, and so the university had provided for that. And so what is Stellar's University committed to? Stellar's University says that since 2000, it acknowledges its contribution to the injustices of the past and therefore commits itself to appropriate redress and development initiatives. It says from the Prof. De Villiers. And then from there, with the restitution statement in 2018, it says that it acknowledges the inextricable connection to the generations past, present, and future, celebrates its successes and contribution towards injustices, and for that there's deep regret. Stellar's University apologizes to communities and individuals who were excluded from historic privileges that they still enjoy and honor the critical martyr voices of the time who could not be silenced. So in responsibility towards the present and future, some have questioned and critiqued and said, what about the past generations? Stellar's University commits itself unconditionally to the ideal of an inclusive world-class university for Africa. So what are we restituting? What are we restituting beyond the return of the building? And we would not know that if we do not ask. And so people have said we're restituting belonging, we're restituting access to education. From the surrounding communities, there are so many schools that actually apply to go to Stellar's University because they feel that it is the university for the elites. They would rather travel to UWC where they have a greater sense of belonging. And so restitution is more than just a building. And so we also are restituting identity in place. And according to Erasmus, Dimitri Erasmus, she said the places where people worked and lived, the spaces where children played, are fundamental to the development of both the community and an individual identity. And this is the same school where a whole community lived. That was the slide I started with. So in a sense of belonging, togetherness, collective participating and sharing activities, that is a crucial element in the formation of identity. And when that place is removed quite violently, the development trajectory of identity formation is also compromised. And so we're also restituting identity. In Sudan, it speaks about Hart says it's long been recognized that people are placed and places people, and interpersonal relationships play a central role in the making and meaning of place. In the history of South Africa, however, this intricate relationship has been persistently and willfully damaged. And for the Platte, I said before, I'm not going to go through that, but it was the government regarded it as a slum area. But where that kind of commissioned this horrific removal. But according to Hillier, it was not a slum area. There was no overcrowding, no unclean conditions, no real reason for commissioning such a traumatic relocation, with thousands of so-called colored residents. Today, those buildings are still standing. It is now sometimes international guest houses, so definitely not a slum. And just to give you a feel, I'm just going to go through this quickly. The use of the following buildings after the Stellar's removal is an indication of the harshness of the forced removal. The Methodist school was used for a white pre-primary school named Kleine-Bosch. The Volkskerk school was demolished and replaced by a local white business. The Anglican school was used by the Stellar's traffic department. The Dutch Reformed Mission School was destroyed to make way for a white restaurant. The following congregations lost the use of their buildings. The Volkskerk became St. Paul's Church, with a majority of white members. The congregation of the Methodist Church was removed to Ivisvalley and Luckham Street. The James Lucas School was given to the Air Force. The congregation of the Dutch Reformed Mission Church was removed to Ivisvalley in a church building in Rustenburg Church. However, the Luckham School remained standing in the midst of the ruin and the rubble of forced removals, which is a taunting reminder of not just what has been lost and alienated in material terms, but also the continuing relationship of power imbalance in the hegemonic dominance from the past that continues to shape the future of the town and its development, says Mr. Conroy. And so the moral and ethical rectitude of transformation must be open to question, and the handing of this historic building will be the acid test. The community was waiting. What is the university going to do? And so their interpretation of the institution statement is very different from ours. And so what we asked is, what does the community want? And so in 1969, thank you, in 1969, the community was asked to pick up the benches, their school benches, because it was illegal for them to occupy the school and relocate. And we asked them, what do you want? How do we start this process? And they said, we want to bring back the benches. And we thought, the benches are 50 years old. Where will we find these benches? And so we set on a quest to find these original benches. And we held a wonderful ceremony where we found these original benches. And it was absolutely incredible. The rector is pictured on carrying the benches back. It was a wonderful process of the restitution of dignity for the community, and very traumatic. I think there was these people here with their grey hair were 17 when they carried the benches out. You know, they carried them back as 70-year-olds. But the real work would only start when we look at the power dynamics that's seen within these partnerships and our understanding of communities as partners. So on the 23rd of June, actually last year, sorry, error there, the rectorate of Stellenbosch University actually made a decision to hand the building back to the community after decades of call. And so the building, the cherished community asset, will take her place after 53 years. And now we can engage with equal partners. So we set up the Look Living Museum think tank, and it comprises of SU faculty members, the Look alumni, community leaders on critical pedagogy, because we're instituting also education and access. So we're working with the teachers in the community and how we can actually set up partners for access. And this is the Look Living Museum think tank, and we partner with lots of different passionate staff members in the university on memorializing the Flapter and capturing oral history. One of the events we're working on for next week is the Walter Perry Lecture. And just before I end, was quite interesting. Walter Perry was a scientist. He couldn't come to Stellenbosch University, which is he was one of the first people of color by a master's degree in nuclear science. Because of he was actually a genius. Stellenbosch University utilized him to do physics experiments with his students with no recognition. And so one of the calls from the community was, we want to do a memorial lecture in his honor, and write his name and put him up on the walls where he belongs. And I have to say, it was not as easy as one could imagine. The narrative of once the community decided this is what we want for him was shifted to, this is a university lecture in collaboration with the community, and the community's like, no, it is an alumni lecture in collaboration. So the power, you have to work with the power all the time, you know. No, we will only find so many people. No, it was like so many people. Who holds the event? No, it needs to be the vice rector. Now, actually, the local community says we will open the event. So weeks of shifting power in just to make this possible was quite interesting, and I'm reminded of his work around intellectual humility in the practice of community engagement. Where does the power sit, and how my role, especially in directing this work, is to gently hold the power and pull down these oppressive structures that remove community agency. And so really reflecting on how we've gone wrong in just this one lecture. Are they centered? Is it what they need? Are we positioning their agency in the way we engage? And then towards the end, I want to reflect on the initial quotes, that the lessons that we've learned through this engagement over the years is really around when we do the practical labor, which leads to knowledge. The very labor of transforming institutions for any transformation has provided us with a wonderful, endless forms of practice and engagement, do's and don't do, absolutely don't do. that shapes our understanding of where we are and where we need to be and what the gaps are. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Renee. We're going to hold questions till the end, and we're going to invite the next speaker, like we did in the previous session, in the essence of time. So, is the next speaker available? The next speaker is Martina Jordan. Are you here? Wonderful. So as Martina walks up to us, I'd like to welcome Martina to the podium. She is from the University of Victoria, and she's going to speak. Her presentation is entitled Capturing Stories, an Engaged Research Project with the Historical Society of Mamelodi. And presenting with Martina is the Reverend Homo. And I'm not sure if Hannes Engelberg is here, but I welcome you both to the podium to present. Enjoy your presentation.
We've got agreement on who's operating, so thank you very much for allowing us to speak. I did share a little bit last year, but this time I brought my co-pilot with me. So it's very important that my co-pilot is Reverend Chris Nkomo. We are now a link to the heap. So with this project, so it's really, really wonderful to have him here. And I must say thank you to our grant holders that's paying for our trip to Rhodes. It's really a privilege to be here. So I'm going to extend a little bit of our presentation from last year, and our colleague Hannes Engelberg is not here. So we just want to acknowledge also his involvement. So I'll just share a little bit about the outline of the presentation, what we will discuss. So we will share a little bit what is the Mamelodi, the Historical Society of Mamelodi, what is the plan, what did we do, how we became co-pilots. That's very important to share that. And then we will share a little bit about the Engaged project with the Historical Society of Mamelodi, the History Department, and then also Meridian College. And then we will reflect on our experiences so far. So we are learning in the process, and I hope you will see it like that, that it's not the end of the road, it's the beginning of the road that we are doing. And then, of course, the outputs that we can deliver so far, that we can at least have something to showcase. So the whole project happens in Mamelodi, and Mamelodi is a township east of Victoria, and that's where my co-pilot lives, and I work. So if there is a campus at the Mamelodi, inside Mamelodi, the University of Victoria Mamelodi campus, it sees itself as an institution. I think it still needs to go a lot. They're rethinking Mamelodi at this stage to see how they can really become a social innovation hub. But at this stage, there is, for instance, a business hub at the Mamelodi campus, a Siatemba clinic for occupational therapists, an animal health clinic for the vets, and then there are a number of students working on the campus or in the community, and then we have a number of international partners that's involved, and the projects that I mainly do with them is e-service learning projects. So there are a number of things happening, and that is all done with the collaboration of the local community, the local department, the Gauteng Education Department, and NGOs, and now we've got a nice, very challenging group of artists also involved in projects. So we are enthusiastic about that new project. So Ray, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Martina. I'm Reverend Chris. I did it intentionally to be called Reverend Chris because people of color usually call you by a name. So we call it. speak and just say grace. I put the title, the reverend part. But I'm a retired pastor, retired or not tired. Still there. So the historical society came from an idea that a people who do not know their past history are like a car with no engine. So then it also came from my own experience when I was in the course at the Pretoria University. There's Siona O'Connor, who was presenting a film lab on this forced removals. I had forced removals before, on the forced removals. After presenting, then they asked for comments and questions. I said I empathize with them because the apartheid government in 1950, they started with the Group Areas Act, where they declared some areas black spots. The black in Pretoria in particular, Eastwood, where I stayed, where I grew up, was declared a black area. Selborne was declared a black area. And all the people from those two areas were moved to either Mamelodi or Atteridgeville. Those who wanted bigger places were sent to Parangua, which had a title, sort of a freehold title like what they had there. Then in the movie, a lot of things happened, and that's where the woundedness and the brokenness of the community of Mamelodi came about. Because after talking about the forced removals, to Susan O'Connor, I felt so I cried like a baby. Tears, and the lecturer came and said, so what's happening? But that's when I saw that the removals had something in me that made me a broken person. And then I thought, this is maybe a societal thing. Maybe this society is also broken like a thing. Then we started doing historical with the civic association, that is SAMCO for the politically correct. Then SAMCO, we had a massacre in 1985, 21 November, in Mamelodi, where 30 people were killed, especially elderly and women, and one 3-month-old baby had tear gas inhalation and she died. So I went to those people, recording their stories. And after telling their stories, there was healing. It's more like lying on the psychologist's brain, telling all the stories because it's reflection as well as recalling what happened there. So that's what we did. Now we said, no, we must formalize this thing. With Sanko, I had Mamelodi Heritage Forum. And then with this one, it was Mamelodi Historical Society. We had 2 journalists, one photojournalist and one news journalist, a retired principal, a retired pastor, and a prophet pastor. That's the core of the committee. And of course, with the academia, we were the community, and Martina represented the, not academia, we the community. Martina represented the academia. So we needed something that we can name. This is historical society, but all the stories that are told, we need to have facts. People must not just talk from and be economical with the truth, but they must talk and have we check the truthfulness of what they're saying. So that's how we started this historical society. Now, with me being an old man, I said I'm going to write only pen and paper and a tape recorder. You know, the tape recorder, the one who said, yeah, that's what I was trying to do. And then she came out, no, let us do it digitally. She was modern. So that's how it's been. After that, we recording the history of the township digital. It's a collaboration between the Historical Society and the University of Victoria. Right, and in 1950, as I said, the group ERASET was connected, and then in 1953, government decided to move those people. But the proof that they can do it, they started with Sobar Town. They moved Sobar Town to Midlands, and they saw that was in 1952 years after apartheid came into being. So 2 years later, and then in 1953, they started doing it nationally. District cities were in Durban, there's Hatfield, and all over the country were moving, even from farms. Farms were taken forcefully. A lot of things happened. Now, let me just go. We were taken to Mamelodi, and now some people, those spies were ruthless. Let me tell you this. They would come unannounced, come to a yard. It was a main house and tenants, and they would target that yard for a day. Came with a breaker, ball breaker, caterpillar, and a van to transport those. And remember, some of the husbands were away. So it's the wife and the children staying there, they're taking them. Then they ask you, you still worried about your accommodation and worried about what happened to the husband? Then they ask you, where do you want to go, Mamelodi or Atteridge? Then you decide that that's the wife who will stay with the children. You say Mamelodi, then when the husband comes, he doesn't know where the family is. Some got mad. The cases where people were going to the wrecks, because it took a long time before they built. It goes to the wreck and look around, looking for the family. Because communication then was not this easy, it was difficult. Moving around was also difficult. So that's what happened. And now we move to Mamelodi. Mamelodi was called Flakfontein initially, Flakfontein. People when they get to a place and they see people smoking tobacco in a crowd, in a crowd that says tobacco, and they see elephants moving around and they call it Olifantsfontein. They see Elandsfontein, and they say Chris Munukara, they say Chris Fontein. That's what they do. That's how they call them places. So Mamelodi was Flakfontein, but Flakfontein was a big farm. So it included Easterest and it included part of Kalimantan. So they decided now to call it Mamelodi, from Flakfontein to Mamelodi. Then this movement from Flakfontein, then you get the narrative now, they say, it's named after Paul Kruger because Paul Kruger could whistle like a bird, he could imitate bird. And we come to realize Paul Kruger died in 1904. When Paul died in 1904. So then these people, how could they name a place of a person who died very long ago? And he didn't know how he could whistle. But that's a narrative that they have. The other narrative of the name is this, what you call this? There were people with the same name, Mamelodi, and those people are predominantly Tswana. That's another narrative. The other one is the one I know, which can be true, but it's a narrative. We're still checking with academia. Is that it's a place, it's mother of whistles, or mother of melodies. So the melodies are the whistling by. Remember, initially we did not want to. The men did not want to. So the police would force them to go back. So there were raids every morning. Now it was a regular raid. Every morning they would pick up, but the women were left there. So the women would go to the woman would stay in the house, and then the men would climb up the mountain. There is a mountain there, there's Mahalisberg, Tabazamfane, and then they will stay there, and then after staying there, then that's where, when the cops are raided and they're gone, then they'll start whistling. Each one had a whistle for so that's where I think the name Mamelodi came from. But in other words, it's a lot of jazz, people like jazz, Victoria area like jazz, whether African jazz or American jazz, but they can give to jazz. So,
I must stop the reference. We always, so what we did, we planned to capture the stories digitally because now people are getting old like Reverend and we are worried that the stories will get lost. So we are not very intellectual with capturing, we're going to write a book, all this wonderful, we wanted just to start capturing the stories. And we had actually 4 partners. So it was the Historical Society we have, because we're still busy, the History Department, and then we also now have Mary College on board. So the first and second years, I did discuss that last year a little bit, we got the Taloy Network grant. So we and I'm very transparent, we explain what we're going to do, we write the budget, we write out the proposal, and we got the grant for the Engaged Scholarship award, and that was excellent because we got a little bit of money to buy a camera, and we could do things that we couldn't do otherwise. So that was really excellent. And thanks to Rhodes, we attended a WeVideo course, and then we started teaching people to use the WeVideo software. The need out of that was that people actually asked for desktop research. And then we realized that the community that's coming to the training are not the target group that we really wanted, because they are afraid to come and work on the computers. So we went now to the community themselves and start interviewing individuals. And Reverend Chris will share a little bit about how impactful that was, that we gave people the opportunity to talk. And I always said, I went to the houses, this Afrikaans white girl is sitting now on the floor, listening to the stories. And we had one lady that got so furious, and the more she got upset, the more she spoke in Afrikaans. And it was really interesting for us. It's really interesting because we're still busy with that. And then the history students, the BA honors students, they got involved, and for every year we are doing that. We got a second Taloy Network grant, and then we started now training the high school kids. So that made more sense for us. The kids are very fast, they learn very fast, and they could start capturing the stories of their parents. And then we also now got a master student from Maryland that is very good on storytelling to help us. And the great thing is the story map, story map that we use, that we thought, oh, it's so difficult, only the students will be able to use it. We, the Historical Society guys are not doing themselves, this is the maps. So what did we really need it? We need the computer labs. There's computer labs at the Mamelodi campus, standing empty, not being used always. Second of all, we could, with the grant, we get the license for the WeVideo and the story map, the university had the license. And then we have this wonderful WhatsApp group that we have, and we can actually communicate with everyone. So, Reverend Chris, if you pass, because you've got 3 minutes. Yeah, 2 minutes.
The collaboration between Historical Society and the University of Victoria helped us, because especially me, my first exam I wrote with pen and paper and case. The second one I had a very wonderful PowerPoint, and then the prof said, how did you get that one? Because it was an interactive PowerPoint. I could stand there and pose and not talk. It went like that with all the points. and some music from reading training. It was wonderful. Even the communities, there's a teacher who's also now learning the story maps. Because story map is just a map, an area where something happened, and then show it next week, and a picture, maybe some photos with the event that happened. Some wonderful, some tragic.
So going on to the next story. And then the students that feedback. Okay, Monty. So the students, okay, I've got the number 3 glasses on. Is on the table. So the students also reflected the value to be involved with a community garden. So I'm going to quickly reflect on the community. So it created a lot of new opportunities for the community. They were involved in academic environment. We are now doing our third presentation. We had a webinar together, so there's things happening. The research paper is coming out. Then they developed a lot of skills. And then new projects developed. We started actually with this one little project. We're going to now record stories. And we are now on 2 story maps. The same with me, there's community development. I see a lot of personal development from the people. People actually in Mamelodi don't know their history. And that was really great that there was now technical skills developed. Knowledge about the communities, the history of the Mamelodi, groupings coming in. Like I said, the artist is now passionate about what they want to do. And then the Historical Society was very important for me. I'm the white lady going through the township, so this is why we are linked to the hip, because he's my champion in the community. He is my person, but we are a whole team. There's Colbert. And like I said, what was so amazing is that one project was developed into another one, and we saw another need. So at this stage, we have now the YouTube channel. There's really bad videos, but we decided that's important. There's the website, there's the LinkedIn page, there's the story maps, and then voila, here we are at the conference. And thank you for listening to us.
Wow, that was an awesome presentation, and so was the one prior to that, just very mind-blowing presentation. I'm sure the audience will attest to that, because they sat throughout the presentations and hardly moved, because lunch is something that's at the back of everyone's mind. But I think in the essence of time, we're going to ask you to please ask your questions to the participants during lunch, so that we can just try and catch up with some lost time. But I would like to take the opportunity to thank the speakers as well as the audience for your wonderful participation. We're going to try and be